everyone. Welcome to Loyal and True. This is a podcast about connecting with other logger grads, other people from PHS. I'm Shelby Kerns. I'm PHS class of 1993, and I am talking to you today from my office on Capitol Hill in Washington, D.C.
That's right. That's right. Thanks, Shelby. I'm Cameron Crain, class of 88. I'm talking to you from the greater Nashville area.
And today we are joined by our first guest, Clark Carpenter, also class of 1993. And Clark and I go way back. We have been friends longer than either of us can remember. Our families were friends when we were growing up, friends and neighbors. I think my grandma worked with your mom, Clark, and they maybe carpooled. You guys lived out by the farm and they carpooled, and my uncle Rich and your brother Mark were the same age, so you guys came over and we were the babies, so we got left out of a lot of the fun, but caused our own havoc, a little bit. No,
A lot of
glad to
good
be
memories
together.
though at the farm for sure. A lot of good memories up there.
And it's funny because we grew up, we started off being being neighbors like that, growing up together, graduating together, and now we work pretty close together. Our offices are just a few minute walk, which is crazy.
Yeah,
It's
that's
no
wild.
one would ever think. Yeah. So maybe tell people where you're at, where you're coming from today, and a little bit about that journey from, rural
Yeah.
Potlatch to here.
Yeah, no, it's kind of crazy. Yeah, I always think about that. Like of all the places that we could end up working, Shelby and I are like 2 blocks from each other. But it's just
Wow.
far enough. I think it's just far enough where, we're not always causing trouble, but there's enough trouble in DC that we can still find some time to, at our age, make trouble, I guess.
Yeah, you have trouble before 8 p.m. before we got to get.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I'll turn into a pumpkin by 9, so I have to be that. Uh, so yeah, I'm in Severn, Maryland right now. I'm at my house and in my home office, and I left Idaho around '96 and joined the Marine Corps. But before that, what I was doing, got out of school, I started working at Bennett's Lumber, and I would go to school part time at the U of I, and I thought it was great. I thought it was, here I am. I'm going to school. I've got a full time job. I go work out with my buddy at Sharks Gym in Moscow every morning, and life was good. And somebody kind of put this thought in my ear. It was, it's going to take you quite a long time, if you think you're going to get a degree at the rate you're going. I had maybe 2, 3 credits, two, 3 courses at a time, not necessarily a full load, but part time. And that kind of got under my skin a little bit, a burr under my saddle, if you will. So I worried on that for a while and thought about it. And it was about the same time that the Marine recruiter called me. And she'd called me before, and I'm like, I'm not interested. But I was always interested in the military. I distinctly remember in elementary school, there was a row of books on the shelf, and they were biographies, of different famous Americans. And one of them was about JFK and PT 109. And man, I read through that thing, and then I couldn't get I just couldn't get enough, World War II sailor type books, those types of things. Drew pictures of them, and that was like, the artwork that you have would be filled with Navy ships with, 16-inch guns and stuff on them. And then I went on a Tiger cruise with my brother Damon when I was around 17, and I'm like, there's
I
no way.
remember that.
The Navy.
I forgot all about that. I remember that.
So Damon was in the Navy, and you can get on, and it's called a Tiger cruise. So, if you have a family member in the Navy or in the Marines, you go meet their ship somewhere on their way back home to the home port. And so I flew out to Hawaii and got on the ship with Damon. And at the time, he was on the USS Prairie, his oldest ship in the Navy at the time. And it had teakwood decks. It was a destroyer tender. Amazing, amazing piece of equipment. I mean, you could fix anything on it. They had a carpenter shop. They could bend steel. They fixed ships, right? And I was pretty excited about it, but after that 8 days at sea from Hawaii to California. I'm like, I don't I don't want to be in the Navy. Oh, but the Marines, when the Marine recruiter called me the second time, um, as I'm thinking about all this stuff, I'm like, yeah, let's do it. It was just a decision just like that. It was like, yes, let's do it.
Wow.
And so, you know, fast forward a little bit, I go to boot camp in '96, and my specialty for the Marines was going to be a combat correspondent, so a military journalist. And that was a funny story with the recruiter. You have to take an English test to get into this. It's called the military occupational specialty. So if I say MOS, that's what that means. So to get into this MOS, you have to take an English test, and I'm like, oh, geez, it was one of my good subjects, but so I take the test, and waiting for the results back, and she calls me and she's like, well, we got your test results back. You got a 75. And I'm like, oh
Mm,
God. And
mm.
she's like, no, that was the highest score in the region. So
Wow.
Oh, yeah.
in the
Yes,
entire
Potlatch
North,
High School. Woo!
Let's go. Go Loggers.
75, baby. It's all you eat.
75,
I don't
man.
know. I
Which
don't
is
know
also our
what
birth
score
year. Woohoo!
I can tell you, I don't know what score you needed. That was a brutal test. It was exceptionally hard. And I remember just thinking, like, "Man, this job I mean, they're really serious about this." So I got in, went to the Defense Information School to become a combat correspondent. You learn broadcast journalism, print journalism. So, both videoing and producing news content, anchoring news content, like at a desk. That was hilarious. Radio shows. And back then, the radio was like splicing tapes and stuff together. So that's how you edit it. Two big reels, a grease pencil, and a razor and some tape. And it was like cutting room floor. That's the type of stuff, where that language comes from, the little pieces of tape that are left, when you splice things together. Um, so at the Defense Information School, that was in Fort Meade, Maryland, and that's right down the street from me now. So we're very close to it. Um, I met my wife, Cynthia, there. Um, and, we fell madly in love and got married. She was in the Navy, and we ended up down in Albany, Georgia. It was my first duty station. She was down in Jacksonville. So, that was 96 and 97 when all that happened. I was an enlisted Marine. So I was a PFC when I left the Defense Information School, got promoted to Lance Corporal, worked on the newspaper down in Albany, Georgia, taking pictures, writing stories, and anything else that really uh, you know they asked you to do. I think I made a voice recording for the phone message down there. That was one of the crazy things, and I got an award for it. I'm like, I got an award for making a voice recorder. I'm a Marine. Like, what is this? His well
Got voice,
modulated
man.
voice.
VO talent,
So,
they say in the business.
Yeah.
so yeah, and funny enough, I just made a voice recording for our front desk and our hotline here at my current job at Amtrak's Office of Inspector General. So I guess, once you do it, you're a marked man. You'll be doing it for the rest of the
I hear we
career.
get an award for it. I mean, they should recognize the talent they have. That's
Yeah. Yeah.
award-winning voicemail recorder, Clark Carpenter.
Yeah, a little more glottal fry, in the voice than when I was a PFC and a Lance Corporal. Down in Albany, what I did is I put in a package to become a commissioned officer. So, you've got your various ranks in the Marine Corps, and there's a designation between officer and enlisted. And, you think of officer, maybe in the civilian world as, middle and upper management. Your enlisted personnel, there's certainly some middle and upper management within those ranks as well. Um, but in the officer world, as a young 20 something second lieutenant, you have tremendous responsibility. You can be responsible for millions of dollars of equipment, hundreds of people, making sure that they're taken care of, and those types of things. And I wanted that responsibility. Um, I I wanted it. Cynthia was pregnant at the time, and I was trying to get her health care, and I was kind of getting the runaround as a young enlisted guy. You get pushed around a little bit because of your rank. And my officer, Captain Forrest, he saw I was upset, called me into my office, into his office, makes me lay it all out for him. Like, what's going on? Nothing, sir. Because I'm of the mindset, and you remember you're coming from Idaho and you know how to do things, when you grow up in Idaho. So you just kind of expect to take care of your own stuff.
Mhm.
He called me into the office and what's wrong? Nothing, sir. Nothing at all. He's like, "Bull BS. Tell me what's going on." So I told him, I can't, I've been going down to medical 3, 4 times. I can't get help. And he picks up the phone and makes a call. And he's like, "Hey, I want to know why my Marine has been down there 3 times to get healthcare set up for his pregnant wife. And it hasn't happened yet." Okay, okay, okay. Hangs up the phone, go down to medical. And this is a captain in '03 in the Marine Corps, not a captain like in the Navy, which is an '06, so a captain. And I go down to medical. And as I'm walking up, here's the Navy lieutenant commander waiting outside the facility in his whites, and I'm walking up. I'm like, what's this guy doing out here? And as I'm walking up, I realized that he was waiting for me. And I realized that that's who my captain talked to on my behalf to make sure that I was taken care of. And it was right in my head as clear as day. I said, I'm going to be an officer because I wanted to be the one to help fix those things and address those things. So, that led me into, some more training. College is a requirement to become a commissioned officer. So, I went to Worcester State College. You go to officer candidate school. And once you're commissioned, once you graduate, you're commissioned as a second lieutenant, and you go to the basic school and then on to your next duty station. So by the time you hit the fleet, every Marine second lieutenant is trained to take charge of a rifle platoon. You're a basic infantry platoon commander, every single Marine, no matter what your job is. My job, however, was in public affairs as a public affairs officer. So we're all trained, they Marines, they call it the cooks, the bakers, and the candlestick makers. All those guys can make a difference on the battlefield. So everyone is trained to take charge of that rifle platoon if necessary, provisionally, whatever. You're expected to be able to do it. But ultimately, my job was public affairs. So overseeing the type of Marine I was as a combat correspondent, overseeing the production of the newspaper or the base television station, newscast or whatever. And then while you're deployed, making sure that you tell the story not only to, the families back home, but to, the American public so they understand and are closer to, who the Marine Corps is, what the Marine Corps does, and the Marines themselves. And I worked as aside from, a stint as a company commander at the Defense Information School, I was in public affairs for the rest of my career. I retired in 2017 from headquarters Marine Corps Public Affairs and moved right into a job in the DC area shortly thereafter. So I work at Amtrak's Office of Inspector General now. I think it's another way to serve. Inspectors General, there's about 70 plus, between 70 and 75 inspectors general. And their job is to conduct independent, objective oversight of all of these federal agencies, right? I our Mine is Amtrak's Office of Inspector General, so we oversee Amtrak's programs and operations. You do that via audits. So program audits, you might go in and look at the new Acela program, identify any issues, develop a report on that, and those reports go to Congress. They go to Amtrak, they go to Amtrak's board of directors, and they go to Congress, and then ultimately released publicly to the American people, the taxpayer. And on the other side, we have our investigators. These are agents, special agents who have law enforcement authority, arrest, investigation capabilities. They can serve search warrants and those types of things. And, they will investigate anything from an administrative, you know, basically policy violation. Maybe somebody is, you know, not clocking out, but going home, so time and attendance fraud, all the way up to, um, we had a case not too long ago where, this guy was stealing credit card information, um, buying Amtrak tickets with the stolen credit card information, exchanging the tickets for vouchers so he could wash the names from them. And then he was selling the vouchers online. We went and tracked this guy down. He was a pretty slippery guy. Tracked him down in Milan, Michigan, and served a search warrant on his house. And when we ultimately arrested him and got inside, pipe bombs,
Oh,
semi-automatic weapons,
whoa.
bags filled with cash, bags filled with drugs, stolen credit cards, all types of, he was a cottage industry criminal. So, windows blacked out, all that kind of
Mhm.
stuff. So it's about 100-person organization. But the things that we do, the important things that we do to, not only, it's really about protecting the resources that the taxpayers provide, helping make an organization more effective and efficient, but also identifying and preventing fraud, waste, and abuse. And pretty much all OIGs have a very similar function or a similar makeup in offices of inspector general when I say OIGs. So yeah, that brings me now. I've been there for over 7 years now. Can't believe that, but it's true. It doesn't seem like I retired that long ago. Um, but yeah, I've been very happy working at the Office of Inspector General for Amtrak.
Well, good for you, and thank you for your service. And you're so young to be retired and onto a second career already. But I love hearing the story, Clark, because I was thinking about this before we talked today. I think the last time I saw you was 1993 in the parking lot of PHS, shaking your hand after the graduation ceremony. So what a journey you've had to get here.
Yeah, no, it was, people say thank you for your service a lot. I'll tell you that it is my pleasure to serve. It was, there were some things that you have to understand about being in the Marine Corps. That it does involve sacrifice, right? But it is such a phenomenal organization to be a part of. Think about that officer that helped me. He was
Mhm.
willing to, call somebody that outranked him and ask for an explanation. And Marines, they still have some active duty friends, and we've got the group chat and stuff. And sometimes I'll see something like on Instagram. I shared this with Shelby. It was it's weird to see Marine influencers like on Instagram and stuff. I don't know how I feel about it, but I'll watch the content, so it's a little bit of a new thing and a new challenge, for public affairs officers. But as long as somebody's positive, and spreading whatever message they are, and they're a good example, there's no reason that Marines shouldn't be out there, talking about what interests them, talking about, why the Corps is important to them, or maybe they're a fitness buff, whatever. But
Yeah.
there's this Marine Lieutenant Colonel talking to the Sergeant Major of the Marine Corps, so the most senior enlisted man in the Marine Corps, and they're going back and forth talking about standards, and the Sergeant Major is like, if you ever, as a Marine, look in the mirror and you don't recognize the person that's there anymore. And we're talking about somebody who's now out of standards physically. You don't recognize that person anymore, and maybe you put your uniform on and you think nobody's going to notice you because you're standing in formation. We see you.
So
And it's so true. And then it's like, now Marines will help you. If you're in earnest and you want to get help, they'll help you. But if you don't want help, maybe it's time to get out. And it was just a very congenial, conversation. But Marines are like, yeah, if you don't meet standards, fix yourself or get out. And when you're away from it for a while, it hits your ears a little bit different.
Mm.
Well, maybe he was going through something. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, it's a it's a very small organization filled with a lot of very serious people. And as taxpayers and citizens, and as a retired Marine looking back, thank God. Thank God that there's Marines that are so mission focused and so intent on doing the right thing
Mm.
and serving this country. It's incredible. We're very, very fortunate for that. And that's when I look back and think about my time in the Marines and see the caliber of Marines that we have, you know, it's such a good feeling, to know that. And that's not just the Marines, the Navy, the Army, the Air Force, Space Force, Coast Guard. These are groups of people that volunteered to serve, and there's a reason for it. They wanted to do something different. They wanted to serve, and it's just I think it's something that we all benefit from. So I'm proud to have served, but I'm also just blown away by the caliber of people who raise their hand and say that they're going to join and serve, support and defend.
Is there anything from like I've never heard that story about you having the highest um
Mhm.
score in the region, which I can't believe. I'm surprised you weren't telling us all the time, but uh what was there
Well, it was a
anything?
75. I don't know. I'm
Well,
still
you
not.
could leave the 75. Yeah, you leave the 75 part out and just say best score in the region. But is there anything it just makes me think, like, is there anything from you're thinking of all these things you've done, career-wise and this, very accomplished time in the Marines and then now with OIG. Is there anything from PHS, anything from those years that, like, contributed to that success that you can think of that influenced you?
Yeah. I mean, absolutely 100%, right? So, um, when you're a young Marine, you are at that moment in time, like you go into so let's talk about this the Marine Corps boot camp for a second. Marine Corps boot camp, they strip away your identity, right? Because they don't care who you were before. When you leave, you're a United States Marine. That's your identity. Now, the reality is, everything that contributed to who you are, whether it was your teachers at school, your parents, your church, your community, where you lived, where you grew up, hunting, fishing, farming, whatever it is, all of those things contributed to make you who you are, who you were at that moment in time when you said, I'm going to join the Marine Corps. When you come out, the Marine Corps is a very, very strong culture, strong culture organization. And one of the differences amongst the Marines and all the other services is, you're not a United States sailor. You're not a you're not a United States Navy. You're a sailor. But the Marines are the ones that your title is your service, right? So you are a U.S. Marine. You're not a, U.S. Army. You're not a U.S. Navy. You're a U.S. Marine. And the Marine Corps spends a lot of time, you know, developing that history, making sure understand about the heritage. That's part of the socialization process, as part of boot camp. when I say that they want to, strip you down, um, uh, one of the things they do is you cannot refer to yourself as I or me any longer. When throughout boot camp, it's this recruit, these recruits. That's how you speak about yourself. This recruit uh, needs to, you know, go to the head. This recruit requests permission to speak to Sergeant so and so. Speak freak, and so it's breaking you down, trying to strip that identity away. But when you leave boot camp, and this is one of the things that I talk to my Marines about, is that something brought you into the Marine Corps. Those things are good, right? We don't want to get rid of those. So we would talk about, I would talk about, my high school mascot was a logger, you know, um, and then we'd laugh. I'd ask the Marines like, who's got a weird mascot? And one kid, his mascot was like the L's, the letter L, and I'm like, seriously,
What?
And so
To do it
we would
back.
talk about,
That's terrible.
yeah, we'd talk about that. I'm like, the elements of who you are your core, right? And those things came not just from the Marine Corps. And so we need to retain the good things, the school, Potlatch, growing up, the high school, the teachers who looked out for you, who called you out, when you weren't performing. Those are those were important moments, Um, and the sports and the pushing yourself and everything that you do associated with it, somehow all of those things brought you to the organization. So they all contribute, I think,
Mhm.
to, being a good Marine. Not everybody comes from a great background in the Marines, but something was there that was positive and pushed them in there. And we want to retain those things. The goal of the Marine Corps is to put citizens back into the United States that were better for having served and that are a better product and a better citizen because of their service. So if I had to, I mean, I, I can't put a finger on, something specific, but there were teachers that pushed you from high school. There were teachers that looked out for you. Sometimes looking out for you was to tell you you were screwed up. Now,
Mm.
Jim Haddock was one of those for me and called me out because it was like a JV game and I was clowning around in the end zone because I wasn't playing. He called me out. He called me right out on it, and I won't forget that. My dad too. My dad was another one. Anytime, when I talk, remember when I talked about the standards, people see you, right?
Mhm.
Your
Mhm.
dad sees you too.
Mhm.
I had backwards Cade in a ball game one time and threw the bat up against the fence. And from the crowd, clear as day, is my dad. You tell he and you're dead to rights. You've been had. And those are the moments where, you're like, yep. And those are the things that they turn that dial in you. They flip that switch where you're like, well, I'm not going to do that again. I know that that's wrong. Um, and so again, that process, everything that you were when you graduated from high school goes into the Marine Corps. Um, it's not stripped away. You know, you are, you do become, uh, you know, the fittest you'll ever be in your life. You do respond to orders immediately. Um, but once you get into your schools afterwards, after boot camp, once you get into your job, we talk about some of those bad things could come back. We don't want those things. We want the good things that brought you into the Marine Corps. So I think I have a lot of good things from my parents, from my school, from just, even Brad Quiring's dad, he served. And I remember
Mm.
just respecting him, and Jeremy's dad served. And I remember just they were very powerful, and would call you out if you were
Mm.
doing something wrong.
Mhm.
And those things all add up, I guess.
I think that's a through line that we had growing up in the culture there in Potlatch is the accountability was really key. And it was a small town. Everyone saw you. Like to your point about you think you're
Yeah.
not, being seen right now, you're being seen. And they would let you know. Haddock let me know several times. I bet we could do a whole show on Haddock calling people out.
Right. Just like everybody telling us all the times that he
Yeah.
called them
Tell
out.
us your Jim Haddock story. Yeah. When he called BS on your behavior.
You guys,
Um,
I have a recent Jim Haddock story, which has nothing to do with calling you out,
ooh,
but I
yeah.
was at a probably 3 weeks ago, I was at a University of Idaho wine release event, and I was with Darcy Birch, used to be Darcy Nagel. She graduated with us in class of '93, and her husband's aunt sent her a text and said, "Do you know Jim and Carol Haddock?" Like, so she,
Yeah.
texts back like, "Yeah, that's my math teacher." And she gets this picture of them, and they were at like a retirement or anniversary party or something, and and happened to run across them and found out they were from Potlatch, and so, of course, had said, like, "Oh, we know some we have a family member married to somebody from Potlatch," so sent a picture of them. So because we happen to be together, so we just took a picture of us, of course, and sent it back. We're like, "Show him this." It was super random, but again, just one of those things, like, you never know where somebody from Potlatch is gonna pop up like that.
Yeah, for sure. You know, in it's just yeah, it's just an instant like, okay, we know, it's an instant connection. There's just so many little things that you have in common, like it's such an instant connection or reconnection when you run into somebody from Potlatch. And it's just funny, like how like I tell Shelby that I talk to everybody on the train because
Everybody.
I ride, yeah, and so I'll
Love it.
sit down and just strike up a conversation, and you just meet tons of fascinating people. But I remember one time I was chatting with somebody, and it turned out I can't remember who the link was. I don't think it was Angela Largen, but they knew somebody from Potlatch.
Mm.
And so I was, like they were getting off at my stop, and I'm like, they were going to the airport. I'm like, well, yeah, here's what you need to do. Don't get a cab, go over, take this. It's free, like give them the whole rundown how to do things. There's these little funny connections like that.
And you go out of your way once someone knows, yeah, makes that connection.
Yeah. Oh,
I
for
love getting
sure.
to talk to everybody on the bus or on the train too.
Oh
Oh,
yeah.
you probably would too, Cam. I think
Yeah.
that's psycho. Like, it makes me think you guys are like serial killers. People
Listen,
put my
there's
earphones in. I don't talk to anybody.
some days, yeah, some days, I do too. I ride Amtrak because one of the benefits is you can flash pass if you work for Amtrak, you can use it to commute back and forth. They want to, obviously get their employees to work. So um, if you ride a commuter train, however, no talking.
Mm.
Just, I mean, yes, you can have a conversation, but commuter people are pretty serious, and they're just on that train. Amtrak people may be going to New York to
Mm.
a birthday party, or maybe doing all types of things up and down the Northeast Corridor. So they're always a fun bunch. Maybe they were in town for to go up to the Hill to brief somebody or meet with lawmakers. So you never know who you're going to meet. Ran into somebody from DC Central Food Kitchen this week, and I connected with her on LinkedIn, and she was just a tremendous spokesperson. She was in marketing, so we were both kind of comm related jobs, and she was such an excellent spokesperson. Talked about all the good things that DC Food Kitchen does, how big the organization was. She knew it all. It was fascinating. Like I didn't want to. I had to get off, but I didn't want to. I just wanted to hear more about this good organization
Mhm.
because she was such an effective spokesperson. So
That makes sense though. The commuters are focused. They're all checking their email. They're prepping for a, presentation or something.
And it's just
yeah,
part of their day. Like, oh, I got to get to work. Got to get home from work.
yeah.
quiet car too is a thing, right? On Amtrak, there's a quiet car. I don't know if there's a quiet car on commuter trains. They're all kind of quiet cars, generally. But on Amtrak, a lot of times on the Northeast Corridor, the front train car is a quiet car. Don't talk in that thing. Somebody will tell you to be quiet, and it's not necessarily gonna be the conductor. It could be anybody like, "Hey, it's the quiet car," and they point at the sign, they're like, "Oops,
Call you out.
let's bring."
I so I have I have observation then a question because I'm thinking of our audience too. Going at the beginning of the call, you two talked about how you have both traveled a lot and you ended up how close to each other and when and
Oh,
how did you? Yeah,
we're just a few our offices, like, we probably live, what, 30, 45 minutes from each other, but our offices
Yep.
are 5 minutes.
that is wild. And
Yeah.
so did you guys know what was going on with each other through the time, or did you suddenly realize you both were in the DC area?
Shelby and
Oh,
I talked when she was
yeah.
coming back. Yeah, we talked a lot, about
And
the
we've stayed in touch before that, and I think we went
uh,
to dinner when right? We went to, I think, like, the King Street Oyster Place when I came back and interviewed. Yeah, when I came back and interviewed,
Oh.
and I was just like, "Hey, I'm coming back, let's have dinner," and I remember we got to dinner, I was like, "Hey, so actually I think I might be moving here,"
yeah,
and here we are.
the house next
Yada,
to
yada,
me had
yada.
for sale. I
So
told her she should buy the house next to me because it was going up for sale at the time, and I'm
mm.
like, "We could build a bridge between them."
Carpenter Kearns connection.
I did
Yeah.
not wanna ride that I didn't wanna ride the train every day.
Oh
I
yeah.
wanted to walk to work every day, so
And I love your walk.
often. Yeah,
So
that didn't happen.
you're in a great neighborhood. That's a cool walk. Yeah.
Yeah, and it is nice. I mean, it's, 20 minutes straight up and down the street, so it's really fun, but it would have been really can you imagine? By now, we probably would have built a tunnel underneath. There would be, like, some secret passageways and
Your backyard would have been a baseball park for sure.
for sure, like, Hargan yeah. Yeah, I remember, Kernsway Park, ours. We would have
Currently,
rebuilt it.
Yeah.
It would
Kearns,
have been
I
like
tell them about that. Clark, what do you remember about Kearnsway Park?
oh, yeah, it was awesome. I remember, I caught my first pop fly in Kernsway Park, and this is, up at Shelby's farm, and they converted, I think this was before Field of Dreams, long before Field
It
of
was
long
before
before
Field of Dreams. Thank you. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah,
long
what a OG. Yeah, it was in the
OG.
barnyard.
so
Yeah,
so
Costco.
it's like a pasture. It was in a pasture kind of, and,
Yeah. It was a
I think
barnyard, like, it was
It was
yeah.
a
yeah.
barnyard. Yep.
We didn't have any cows down there, so I guess we made it.
But had like the I remember on the fence, I think maybe I'm misremembering, but I thought there was like how far it was to the
Mhm.
fence, like
Yeah.
if you hit
Yeah.
armor,
Did
like
you do the Rich was it Rich and
Ri-
you, Ken, who
Rich and I painted. It was like down the right field line. It was like 95 feet. But you had the barn and you could hit it against the barn. But if you hit it over the barn in the wheat field, it was an out. Like it would count as a home run.
yeah,
Sure. You could have but it was also an out. You had to weigh that if you're gonna
because
jack
'cause
it.
we'd lose all those Incrediballs. We had all those Incrediballs. It
yeah,
was
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
We had Incrediballs. That was
yeah.
Rich's idea. Yeah.
That's a good idea. Yeah, I remember I distinctly remember catching my first pop fly there. It was such a huge deal, I was like,
That's
of
big.
course it was pure luck, I'm sure, because I was just
Mhm.
like,
We
reaching left field.
probably in left field. Because remember, left field would go on forever. Not like right field was 95 feet with the barn, but then it just stretched
Yeah.
to all the way to the house. You could just jack it to left and get a
I
single.
remember that because we'd play Kearns against Carpenters, so there must have been I guess you have a lot of brothers, Clark.
Yeah, yeah.
You guys fielded a whole team, and we had
Yeah.
all of us. We had
We had to cobble the Kearns crew together.
Yeah.
yeah,
You had the 5
It was
brothers.
enough for a good game, though. I remember
yeah.
that. It was a lot
Yeah.
of fun. God, what a
Yeah.
blast.
It was
No, I
we
was
would rake
I
the
was,
field. Yeah.
That's right.
yeah, I was
Well,
thinking
yeah, I
about
don't think I got to play, but I did go down and help.
You
Rake
were
the
there. I
field.
remember you, Shelby, like riding on the tractor, I think
Yeah.
because your
I was
dad
a
got the rake
scorekeeper.
and kind of raked it, and then Rich and I had to get a lot of dirt we wanted to make a proper mound. So then we had to import the dirt to make the mound. That was the thing.
I
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
it
serious.
was so cool.
Oh,
I
yeah.
remember yeah, the big shop with I don't know, it was the big cement floor and the big apron out front and the little pedal cars that you guys had. I
Oh,
died for those things. I loved those so much going to And then I just would look forward to it all the time if we're going out there. We're going cherry picking. Where was the
Yeah.
orchard we go cherry picking up
I think it
there?
was up on the Bailey place, wasn't
Yeah,
it?
was
Yeah,
up on the Baylor Place,
Yeah.
which is Lone Jack Mountain for those who know the area. Yeah, I'm
yeah,
from that area. Yeah, we would do that. Those
yeah. We
Clark, those were like Shelby. I want to say like your dad and Bob and Ralph and my mom all would have had those growing up. Those were ancient things,
Yeah.
weren't they?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think maybe
those
they
old
came
cars.
from actually, I think they might have come from my mom's
Oh,
family.
really? Oh,
Yeah, because I remember one of them was painted, like a Mack truck, and I'm pretty sure that was
mm-hmm.
I think maybe they were Stacy's. I don't know, I'm gonna have to track this
Oh, could
down.
have been Stacy's. Shout out
Yeah,
Stacy.
maybe
Shout out
yeah,
Class 86, Stacy
yeah.
Ager.
Stacy, you better be if you're listening to this, let me know, were those your cars? We still have them. They're still
Yeah.
there.
What?
So,
Are they really?
yeah,
awesome.
yeah, I'm gonna also
They're
count
probably worth
get
tons
those
of
down.
money too,
That's
because they're probably still functional. And if they've been inside and stuff, I've watched. I love anything where somebody restores things, shows like that. And I've seen those where they restore them, paint them, and they're worth a lot of money. They're really cool.
I think we had 2 or 3. I don't know.
I think there was
I'm on it. I'm gonna track this down.
yeah,
That'll be a
you track it
follow-up.
down.
Mhm.
Track it
That'll be a
down.
follow-up for sure.
Yeah.
And we played
Yeah,
football up at, Torrey and,
We played a lot of
Buster's up
football.
on the hill.
Yeah.
that's
Yeah,
right.
Yep.
In the snow, right? Wasn't it
Yep.
did you ever play
Snowdrift
that in the
football.
snow? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. We had, Torrey's, raspberries. We had a massive raspberry patch that we got from Torrey, and that was part of our summers, going through every couple of days and picking out, flats of raspberries that mom would make into jam, mostly, or she'd freeze some, take them out for ice cream. I mean, you think about like uh, my growing up, it was pretty much all deer meat. We would go and pick like blackberries. We had the raspberry strawberries. We had a huge garden. We grew all our own food. Mom canned everything from venison to fish to veggies. And we had, just a room up in the shop lined with all that stuff. So I remember, health wise, I was in pretty good shape when I joined the Marine Corps. I think they did a cholesterol screening at our high school, and I was 17, and mine was just it didn't crest enough cholesterol to register.
Oh, wow.
So
So lean. You have a lot of meat,
yeah, I
veggies.
don't know if it. Yeah, oh yeah, I don't know if it'd be the same today.
You're not canning things, Clark? You don't have a big
Uh,
basement with can.
Can you imagine? Yeah, I
Right,
mean, and that's the type of stuff that you forget about. You go back home and
right.
be talking with my mom, and she'll be like making a pie or something, and it's like magic. Like you talk for 10 minutes and suddenly there's a pie made and
There's a
ready to go in the oven.
Yeah, how about
Yeah,
that?
you're like, what the hell happened here?
Yeah.
What magic just
What
occurred?
magic did you
But,
do?
but she cooked. Yeah, she had to cook for 5 boys all the time. And we were like locusts, I'm sure.
Well, we traveled to Clark, we also traveled together, like, when your dad was coaching and Mark and Rich were doing all-star baseball and Grandpa Buster was with the coach who wouldn't say anything. Your dad would do all the talking. Grandpa Buster would just be taking notes down there on, first base. But we went on I think you guys all went in the camper and we went across the state of Washington, didn't we?
Yep.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, we had the camper.
We had the camper and your mom was making sandwiches. I remember all, doing a lot of that stuff and yeah, sharing meals.
Good times in the camper. Yeah, we had put it in our 73 Ford, put these big fat tires on the back of it. They call them dunes, because
Yeah.
you needed a little
Yes.
bit more support for these pickups for the weight of that camper. But we would all be in that camper, all 5 of us. We'd go back to Wisconsin to see, mom and dad's family from time to time and take that. And there's a bed right above the cab. There's a bed, and there's that window you
Yeah.
look out onto the highway, and we would all be up in that thing, just looking out, driving down the interstate. All 5 of us. God, if there was an accident, we would have just gotten shot out like cannons.
What a time. What an era,
We survived.
You've
huh?
said that like 25 times
Yeah.
since we started this. On the
Yeah.
so like we've talked a little bit about like all of these old memories are amazing and that makes me wonder like is there anything that makes you nostalgic for College High School that like when it, you hear it, see it, smell it,
Yeah.
crosses your mind, like is there something that like triggers that nostalgia of all these memories and things?
Anytime you go home, like I went, been a few years now, but I went and watched Taylor, Brett, my brother Brett's daughter, play volleyball, and then of course my buddy Ryan's there, and he's got a daughter playing volleyball, and then there's all of these people that um, but yeah, it's still the same. It's still the same high school, still the same pictures, the trophy cases and everything, and it's a good memory. This was an important place. It's good to see they got a good library down
Mhm.
the hill too. I
Yeah.
read a lot of books from that library. Just there was a lot of good books in the library that we had. One of the series of books that I read was oh gosh, what is his name? Horatio Hornblower.
Yeah, he
I
would
know.
really appreciate her.
Oh, the adventurer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. He started as a ship's boy and then worked his way all the way up through the ranks in the British Navy. So I probably didn't see the tie at the time, but yeah, I couldn't get enough of those books. They were great. And then the funny thing is, my boss at Amtrak, Inspector General, the Inspector General, we were chatting one day, and he'd read all the same books.
That's
We're
awesome.
both Marines. I'm like, there must be something to this.
Something
Yeah,
there.
definitely there's a pull there.
So I love that
Yeah.
you got in like because of your writing specifically. So let's go back to writing. Do you remember anything from your English classes or did you do journalism? Did we even have any journalism? Anything like that?
Yeah.
Did you remember the typing room? Remember the old
Yep.
room?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
HMFLDKFJ
There,
space.
yeah, yeah.
FLDKFJ space. Yeah,
Yeah.
those selectrics. No, so I don't. We always like. I think we did a lot of writing in elementary school, like stories and stuff. You
Mm.
Yeah.
know, and it's around sixth grade. Because we'd also spend a lot of time reading. There would always seem to be like time that you were supposed to read,
Mm.
and you could read whatever you wanted, like choose your own adventure books or Beverly Cleary or what were those ones that I got into? I mean, the Louis L'Amour books, we have them. We still talk about them. All the
Oh,
brothers have
your
read
brothers
those.
loved them because I went to I was in Damon was in my class. Damon got me into Louis L'Amour. Yeah.
They're awesome. Yeah, they're
Yeah.
awesome. They're still great books. And oh, by the way, if you do audiobooks, they're even better on audiobook. It's just a whole nother way of experiencing those books. But yeah, you always read and stuff. And it just, the verbal side of things was always my strong suit. And I think Shelby didn't you and I and a handful, didn't we have like an advanced writing class in seventh grade with Mr. Carr?
I don't remember.
Missed your car. There's a
I
flash.
remember we had some advanced reading, like
We had to write more
we had to read.
papers than everybody else. We had to
Yeah.
read stuff
We had to
because we
read more books and write more papers. I don't think it was a separate
yeah,
class, but I remember that. I remember
that's
railing
right.
against the unfairness of it all because
Yeah, yeah,
what?
that's right. It wasn't an extra class. It was just more work.
It
Like
was
we
just
got
more work.
assigned more.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I remember having a lot of anger about it because I needed some time to mess around.
Yeah.
Well, we read some good books.
Clark's all like, "It was amazing because we had more work, we were, look how it led
Well, we
us here."
got
I'm
into the
like,
books
"I
though.
did not get to get it there's so much more trouble I could have gotten into if I just hadn't had to read." But we read The Godfather,
The
which I did really
Godfather.
enjoy. I did re and it also seems weird to be like, "Hey, advanced readers who are 12, why don't you read The Godfather?"
Yeah, seriously.
We were 13 probably, weren't we? Let's just hope because The Godfather
With
was
all the
awesome.
choices. Yeah.
It
It
was
was
great, I loved it, and I read, like, the whole series and the whole
yeah,
thing.
me too.
In
Same.
retrospect, like, "What? What was
Yeah,
going
I know.
I don't know.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean,
But
I'm like,
this is the
yeah,
first time, by the way, that I've admitted that I enjoyed that book because I was so mad about the extra work that I think maybe my parents found out when I kept reading, the series, but I really held fast to my anger. And that's the only one I remember. I remember there were a number of them, but I don't remember what they were.
I was always reading something. I read a lot. So it was just, you don't have a phone, you don't have social media or anything. So I was always reading something. I always loved that.
We barely had television. Like there
Yeah,
wasn't
yeah.
yeah.
So you're right. Yeah, sorry. We had 2
Yeah.
channels. We had 3 channels, and ABC was always kind of
ABC was
fussy.
fuzzy, right? ABC
Yeah.
was
Yeah,
Channel 4 was fuzzy for us. Yeah.
Yeah, we had
yeah,
like 4 channels, 3 during if it rained. If it was raining.
Yeah.
oh, yeah, it was so fun to go in, and so when somebody had cable and Potlatch and you could see, like,
Oh,
Goopy and stuff like that, that was
yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
Remember
I
that
used to miss the
distinctly.
bus and go so that I had to stay in town and go to some family member's house with cable.
It
Mhm.
makes it sound like
Funny.
Little House on the Prairie a little bit, but it wasn't. Yeah, I'm sure people are like, "Wow, I don't even understand how a TV could be fuzzy." You know?
Yeah. Yeah, people and they
But
were boxy. They were not flat. They were box
Yeah,
yeah,
they were
things.
and
Yeah.
they
heavy.
were
They all had
furniture.
heavy
They
things.
were they were
Yeah.
furniture.
They were
They were in
furniture.
wooden cases. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. No, it's a good thing. I always Shelby and I were talking the other day. Is just my phone broke, and I've just been going through the whole hassle of getting a new one and then transferring all the stuff from and it never works right, and the logins and passwords and everything else.
Yeah.
You're just dying a slow death, with these things. It's just a death by a thousand cuts. And we were both like, yeah, well, I think we should just get phones that just text and you can make phone calls and that's it. And it's appealing. It's really appealing, I suppose, until you get rid of this thing that
So you get
you
one.
depend on. Yeah. Yeah. If you go without, I kind of need it for work and stuff like that, keeping up with the news.
Oh, yeah.
It's really important. I'm on Twitter every day, just checking stuff to see what's developing. But um, God, it would be nice to just cut loose and get rid of some of this stuff. But at the same time, it brings people together just like we are now. So,
That's true. Also, we feel
ah,
like we're 1,000 years old with our, like, complaining about technology.
Remember
yeah, yeah,
when?
Yeah.
yeah.
Hey, so
Oh my
speaking of,
God.
like, Mr. Carr and Mr. Haddock, do you have a favorite, like, teacher or coach that you remember?
Uh,
Or, like, somebody who was really influential?
Mrs. Roan, second grade
Oh my god, she was my favorite. I loved her so much.
she was it second grade or
Yeah, 2nd grade.
and then there was Mrs. Jensen in third, and she was just phenomenal. Um, in high school, well, Mrs. Landis, she was the one that recommended me for remember Shelby and I had to go into this advanced math class when we were in 7th grade. She recommended me for that, and I got in, and it was glad, now, but it was hard. I'm put it this way, like when I went to get to grad school, I had to do a GRE, and I scored in the 95th percentile for
Wow.
English for the verbal side, and I needed to score in the 25th percentile for math to get into this course that I went into, and I barely eked in to the 25th percentile. I was like, yes, on math stuff.
But you did
So
it. You did well at those classes, and I remember you would go ask Mr. Haddock for help, and he was always
every
if anybody asked him for help, he would take his time and do it. That was great.
Yeah.
every single day I would go in there and be like, I can't figure these out. It felt like every single day I would do that. You remember you'd have like the odd problems and the answers would be in the back, and then you'd have that like last problem where you wouldn't have the answer for it and you'd have to just struggle through it. My math book I remember distinctly it had a tear in it, on the binding because I whipped it across my room one day because it was just I couldn't get it. And here's the great irony of it all, like, it's important. I think, math, it helps you think in a different way, right? That's really why it's important to me. I think it's like learning sheet music or something like that. It opens your mind up to think differently. Um, when I put in the package to become an officer, I went to a pre-commissioning school in Newport, Rhode Island. It was called Broadened Opportunity for Officer Selection and Training, Boost. We love our acronyms. And they see my math scores from my high school transcript, and they're like, "Oh, you've done some advanced math. We're gonna put you in. We're gonna put you in advanced math again." And I'm like, "No." So I ended up in pre-calculus and, this is just the same exact thing. It was just like repeat, down with this guy. The teacher was a Navy captain, Mr. Regazio, and I'm just walking through delta epsilon proofs with him, and I'm like, I can't figure this out. I missed a class, and so I go down there with my proof, and this was the worst part is because I tried to do this proof and I couldn't figure it out because he had the answer and I couldn't get that answer. So I walked him through the proof and he realized that he had made a mistake.
Oh,
Oh,
Well, when I'm like walking through and then I'm like, so therefore I'm getting this and I don't understand. I can't figure it out. And Emma just thought I was stupid. And he's
and
like,
you were accurate,
"Ooh."
and he was
Yeah,
off.
I was
Ah.
right. Yeah.
you
And
could have
so
done the advanced math.
Go loggers.
Go loggers.
Look at the skills. Look at the
look,
skills.
in terms of math, it's like there's this old Saturday Night Live Jack Handy, phrase that I think of is, like Jack Handy will come out and he'll say some, quote.
Deep
It's
Thought
never
by Jack
Deep
Handy.
Thoughts by Jack Handy. And the one that I think of in terms of math for me is like just because you break a lot of hammers doesn't necessarily mean you're a hard worker. It might just mean that you don't know proper hammer maintenance.
I actually tell people that all the time when they're like, "I'm working really hard," and it's my way of saying you might be working on the wrong thing, like,
Yeah.
or something, but nobody knows Deep Thoughts by Jack
It's
Handy, so a little bit it always I feel like the humor part doesn't make it through. They just it makes me sad.
No, no, it's personal for me. I'm like, yep, that's me in math. Anytime, even today, I'm like, and again, like grad school, I had to do, the statistics and everything else. And when they show you a picture of it, I'm like, oh, okay, I can see, I understand what's happening. But anytime there's like math related things, I always will ask somebody else. I'm like, hey, I'm getting this. Does this make sense? And they're like, oh yeah, most of the time. So yeah. But
Did you ever work on a complex problem with Mr. Reynolds?
no, but
Was
Mr.
he
Reynolds was awesome. I love geology. And Shelby, you like geology too, I think, right? You're a big fan.
I'm a big fan.
Eskers, glacial stuff, fascinating. The
Oh, he
channeled
was great at that
snaplands.
stuff. Yeah, he was
Yeah.
Oh,
so much about that stuff. Yeah.
and now you ever, like I regret not paying more attention. But then when I took it in college, I did love it in high school. And I remember we go on those field trips and see
Mhm,
see the fault up on Moscow Mountain. And
mhm.
one time, he took us down to the river. And I think we were panning for BBs. I think he did that with everybody. You put some BBs in the sand and you like try to pan them out with like you were gold, mining or whatever. And, we were screwing around. We went and jumped in the water. Our trousers were soaking wet. And I found a piece of asphalt, broken piece of asphalt on the ground. And I come running up to him. I'm like, hey, Mr. Reynolds, look, it's a conglomerate. He's like, oh, Clark, that's just a asphalt.
Oh, Clark.
He was so disappointed in me.
I know, I had that look from him, and he'd, like, pout with and his beard would come up, like, flash at you, like that kinda yeah.
Oh yeah, me and Shelby were troublemakers in that class too. You know, we'd
Yeah.
always be talking.
I was too. We'd get him distracted because he was such a colorful storyteller, and we just
Oh yeah,
tell stories.
I
Yeah.
think he was not known for his classroom control. I don't think that was his I don't think
yeah.
that's what he was known for, but
My
we had a good time in that class.
his professional development, he didn't have that.
The sad thing of it is that it was really interesting, but I feel like I didn't, uh, really pay as
Yep.
much attention. But we learned
Said
enough to
every
make us interested in it to go to college,
said
like
every high school student ever, right? Like,
yeah,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
don't think there's anybody that gets out of high school and like years later will be like, God, I could have been such a better student,
Right,
you know.
yeah.
right.
In But to be fair, there's just a lot of things that are happening when you're growing up.
Mhm,
So there's just so much competing with your time.
mhm.
I think I made the honor roll a couple of times, once or not always, but enough. But when I got to college, no problem. It was pretty much, you know, A's and B's in college, but in high school, you have other things to do.
A few weeks ago, I was at, Niagara Falls, and we're down on the boat. There's all these people, and, it's this really fun experience, and I said, "It's interesting because, this river comes down here, but this looks like it was created by a glacier and not by a river." And you could just tell everyone's like, "Hey, shut up. Like, we're just having a good time." But, like, why is this crossing your mind? But I do that all the time. Like, if I'm in any sort of canyon where I'm like, "Well, this looks a little bit too wide and sloped, it's not it should be like this if it was made by a river." So I had to go find a tour where they would talk about all of the geology, and this is the kind of stuff that, like, all our since getting out of high school, Clark and I've shared with each other, like, "Oh, do you see that article on that blah, blah, blah." It's so dumb, but we really could have been better students. We really but Mr. Reynolds did instill, like, obviously just a really deep interest in that.
Oh yeah,
Yep.
yeah. I've actually, we go down to see the um, Craters of the Moon National Park. I've been to Yellowstone, and and just I've always been really, really interested in the channeled scablands across central Washington, because that was our neck of the woods. It was the North Fork River that backed up and made Lake Missoula, which was billions and billions of gallons of water. And then the Laurentide ice sheet blocked it off, right? But then it would recede, and then the water would just come rushing across the top of Idaho, and then across Washington State, and it did that several times over. And so early geologists, were looking at this bizarre landscape, and they're like, "How did this happen?" And some guy is like, "It's from water." And they're like, "You're crazy. It's not from water." And he went up in a hot air balloon and looked down, from it, and there are ripple marks like you would see on a beach. On a small scale, you look down at your feet and you see ripple marks on the water, but these things were on a massive, massive, massive scale that you could only see from the air.
Wow.
The group, it was from water rushing across, Washington, out into the Pacific Ocean ultimately. So, yeah, I if it goes back to high school, right? Those classes, going out, seeing, granodiorite and orthoclase feldspar, and all of that kind of, stuff, sedimentary, igneous, metamorphic rock, all that. Yep.
Or
Recall.
we would cruise around and be like, "Look at that outcropping," after
Yeah.
remember that when we were in his class? Like, he really
Yeah,
yeah.
I do. I distinctly remember it. And the funny thing was, my geology instructor in college, Mr. Robert Lingner, he traveled everywhere, and he traveled on Amtrak. And he took pictures, and he had thousands and thousands of slides. And so he would show us all these places in the US that he had gone. And then we'd go out and do field trips, and look at quartzite, and you learn how to take pictures like a geologist. You got to put your rock hammer, on the ground for perspective because you can't tell how big it is.
Mhm.
But yeah, we do our labs on all that stuff and go see. Well, this was in Massachusetts where I went to finish my undergrad. Um, but you go see and there's all types of glacial stuff, up in that area from the ice sheet. So, you know, yeah, I nerd out on that stuff. I love it. So Tars would probably be proud.
Stars would be. Absolutely. Absolutely.
So one more thing we just kind of want to ask before we wrap up is like if you could give yourself like if you could give your high school self one piece of advice other than pay more attention in geology, you're gonna regret not paying attention. What would it be? Like what's something you would tell yourself?
Yeah. Well, it's it's the good fortune that I have had a son. I've been able to pass some of this along is like, you don't need to like everybody, but you need to be nice to everybody. There's going to always be kinder and better person. One of the things though is when you're a young kid, you kind of can be a little, you could be better. is what it is. I would certainly say pay more attention because you're going to regret not paying attention. You're going to, regret the fact that you're not a strong writer. You're going to regret the fact that you weren't strong in math. You're going to regret those things. Because, out in the real world, if you can't write, you know, people see it right away. I taught Marines. I taught a joint class, and a lot of people that were coming through the course, public affairs officer course, these people have degrees, and their writing was just poor.
Mm,
So
mm.
yeah, it's the one thing like you can probably, unless math is your job, you can probably use a calculator or Google it. Um, but you always pay attention and learn how to write and learn how to speak because those are the things that are going to matter quite a bit when it comes time to get that job.
I like that about being kind too, because I and most of the things I regret were just times I wasn't kind.
Mm.
Yeah, god dang it. But you can't take it back, right? And so the thing is
Learn from it.
yeah, yeah. And it's just like I said, it's like everything everything that's influenced you, everything that you do, makes you the person that you are at that moment in time right now. Even that all of the life's events and experiences have culminated at this moment in time to make you the person that you are. And part of that is having regrets, knowing that things are wrong, getting yelled at, by your dad because he threw a bat, up against a fence, or being called out for being a clown and obnoxious by Mr. Haddock. Um, all of those things contribute to who you are right now, and you're better for it.
That's great advice, Clark.
Yeah.
And, I love what you just said there. I think that resonates here. I have twin daughters who are 17, and we talk about kindness a lot and paying attention. Uh, yeah.
Here, so my son, much like me, is a verbal person. We're all art focused here. My wife's an artist, my son's an artist. We're all, on that side, not necessarily on the math side of things, whatever side of the brains that is, I don't know. Um, but he had trouble just like me, and but it was in chemistry. And I'm like, listen, go see the teacher
Mm.
with the problem every day. Just and all I'm thinking, like, I did this with Mr. Haddock, and you know, did he give me any credit for that, on paper? It's either right or wrong, on paper, but I'm sure that it matters in the long run when you show that you're putting an effort in and you care about it. And so that was one of the things I'm like, you need to go see the teacher. you need to work through the problems with her. She's going to be thrilled to help you. And then I also told him that he should write Avogadro's number on his hand and say, you know, Mrs. Smith, I don't know if you know this, but I got this weird mole. Yeah. What do you think?
Yeah.
I don't know what that means.
But it sounds
Is it
cool.
Avogadro's
good.
number? Was it Avogadro's number?
I have no idea what you're even talking about.
We need to fact check that.
I did not.
That is.
History.
Avogadro's number represents a mole
But
in chemistry.
what I love, what I love about that is just the connection with the teacher. You know, I was in education for years. I'm in higher ed now, but on the tech transfer side, and seeing students who want to have a relationship, want to get better, makes a big difference on the educator side. Always. I mean, we're human. You know, that chemistry teacher is human. She's going to probably go out of her way to help him if he's coming to see her. I say the same things with my daughters. Don't write off the teacher. Don't marginalize them, or, you know, call her names or whatever. Go talk to her.
Yep. And full circle, you know, my job is communications. It's you know, public relations or public affairs. And it underlines this truth that it's not just about the relationships, it's all about the relationships. You can't be successful without other people, you know, and that's absolutely important. So building and maintaining relationships, that's the crux of public relations and public affairs. That's what you do with your key publics, with people who, you know, matter to you. And you have to remember that we're human, as you said.
Right.
And you know, it's all about the relationships. It's not just about the relationships, it's all about the relationships.
I love that. It is the first episode, and that's what Loyal and True is about. All
It
about the relationships.
Building, maintaining, finding those commonalities. That's what we're all about.
Cheers to that. You can't
Perfect.
see the glass.
This is
It's
my-
blurry. There it is.
My tiny can of Dr. Pepper.
Yeah.
Cheers.
And
Thank you so
Dr.
much.
Pepper they got to send a scholarship to PHS now for that.
That's
Shout
right.
out.
Product placement, 100%.
Yeah, no, they should have thought of that.
God,
Remember Wayne's World? I was talking to somebody about that movie, Wayne's World, the other day.
Oh, love
Yeah.
Wayne's World.
Yeah.
Wayne's World. Excellent.
Yeah, remember?
Party
They were doing product placement in it. It's like some type of headache pill. I can't remember what it was, and soda. And yeah, it was pretty funny.
Did they have like Doritos? Did he have like a bag of Doritos? He was
Yeah, there
holding?
was a whole scene where it was just back and forth with product placement. It was pretty funny.
Yeah. Maybe
Mike
we'll
Myers.
work that in. Maybe we'll work that
We
in.
can work on that.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
we'll work that in. We'll see if we can work that in.
Opportunity.
Yeah, as we talk to more people. So I hope everybody enjoyed this chat with Cam and Clark and myself, and we look forward to talking to more grads. So let us know if there's somebody you want us to try to get on the podcast, if there's somebody you've lost touch with that you are interested to find out what they're up to, and we would love to try to get them to spend an hour or so talking to us. So thanks for tuning in, and thanks Clark for the great chat.
Awesome, Clark.
You guys, it was a lot of fun.
Loyal and true, guys. Loyal and true.
Loyal and True. All right.
Everybody.
Right on.